What's up, my comic comrades? Today we break down the long-awaited Ultimate Wolverine issue 1. We learn some cool things about this Wolverine and see just how scary he actually is. If you thought the normal Wolverine was a force to be reckoned with, they're building this version of the character to be even more brutal than that. It also ties into Ultimate Universe 1 year in issue 1, which we're going to briefly break down first. At least the Wolverine portion of that issue, as it enables you to better understand what's happening in Ultimate Wolverine 1. It essentially gives us the origin of Ultimate Wolverine, and then the first issue of his solo series builds off of that. With that said, let's just get into it. So on the last few pages of Ultimate Universe 1 year in, we get the creation of Ultimate Wolverine via the dedication logs of Dr. Alanya Prostovich. She's the Director of Science and Technology for the Eurasian Republic. The task was handed down to us from the maker himself. The Eurasian Republic was to be the centralized home to mutant kind, though its primary motive was control. And who better to control the mutant problem than the mutants themselves? Now let's pause here real quick for those of you who may not be familiar with the maker. He's the ultimate version of Reed Richards, who's evil and has kind of been the Oz behind the curtain pulling the strings for this Ultimate Universe. The comic goes on to say what the maker did not know, however, was what the Eurasian Republic chose to do with those mutants. It was not to provide them with sanctuary, nor was it to imprison them. Despite their genetic similarities, they were not viewed as brother and sister, but as tools. Their unique abilities made them, shall we say, useful. As we see the Eurasian Republic experimenting on mutants while simultaneously torturing them as characters like Colossus and Magic from said Republic look on. We continue to see them experimenting on mutants, doing stuff to hearts and all sorts of other stuff, as captions continue to say, although there was peace between territories as established under the Maker's watchful eye, our leaders grew fearful of incursions, insurrections, and reactionary reprisals. Thus was created Directorate X. We worked in secret, a ghost operation. No paper trail, known to less than a dozen individuals. We were bureaucratic phantoms. To the world at large, I was Director of Science and Technology under the Eurasian Republic. To my superiors, I was Asset. To my subjects, I was God, as she was the one leading the experiments. But as we continue to read the private logs, they say, strength inevitably breeds resistance. Led by a coalition of humans and mutants, the opposition rose. They fought Eurasian forces time and again, only to deliver us unexpected victory, one that had invaded us and the Maker alike. We called it as we did, the other simply Specimen. So if the wording here sounds a little bit weird, that's because the Doctor speaks broken English as she's Russian. And it's actually written that way in the book for effect. But essentially, it seems like mutants and humans and a coalition came to fight the Eurasian Republic. And that coalition seemed to be made up of some X-Men, or at least some rebelling mutants. Because the Specimen that they refer to would be none other than Wolverine, who is wounded and on the run from them. And we know this is Wolverine because the logs continue to say, when the Specimen arrived in our compound, it was already regenerating from its grievous wounds in battle. We went to work immediately, which of course is a clear tell, because if you know anything about Wolverine, you know he has one of the best healing factors in all of comics. Anyway, it continues to say 4 surgeons died trying to administer sedative. It took an Omega level telepath to control it, and at that, barely. Yeah, Wolverine ain't going out without a fight. We then see they began taking x-rays of Wolverine showing his skeleton, which is no doubt them getting ready to lace his skeleton in adamantium. On the next panel, it says we had encountered mutants again, 2 specimens before. Attempts were made for similar enhancements, but it did not take. I was convinced this time it would work. This wasn't a question of whether we could turn an average citizen into a warrior. No, this was whether we could make a good soldier perfect. And we did. We turned a man into a weapon. As we see Wolverine stand up for the first time after his skeletal procedure, unleashing his new metal claws. The log continues to say, born and died, then born again. They called him Logan once. Then the Specimen no more. Now he's ours. Our Winter Soldier. As we see Ultimate Wolverine for the first time in the cold wilderness with a brand new design for this universe. And I gotta say, I'm loving it, especially that Mortal Kombat Winter Soldier face mask. Not being able to see his face at all makes him way more intimidating. But alongside our first glimpse at Ultimate Wolverine, the panel says, to be continued in Ultimate Wolverine issue 1. So that's exactly where we're headed next. All right, let's jump into Ultimate Wolverine issue 1. The issue starts off near the border of the Eurasian Republic and Latveria airspace. And we see Wolverine, or the Winter Soldier as he's called in this universe. That's right, Wolverine is the Winter Soldier of this Ultimate Universe, at least for now, sitting on a cargo plane as 2 soldiers talk about him saying, you think he can hear us? The other soldier says, why don't you ask? He responds, I'm not asking him nothing. He creeps me out. I heard he was part of an experiment gone wrong in the North American Union. Gorokovsky, an infantry, says, he's not a man at all. He says he's pieced together from corpses of soldiers who died in combat. He says he can't die. They blow him up, stab him, shoot him. He always comes back same as before. At this point, Winter Soldier, or Wolverine, stands up, stares down the 2 soldiers who were talking about him, and one of them says, we didn't. As Wolverine opens the door to the cargo plane, he walks to the edge of it while the soldiers say, he doesn't have a chute. And on the next page, we see Wolverine jump out of the plane without a parachute, all MCU Captain America style. The issue then takes us to the past as we see a very familiar scene from Ultimate Universe 1 year year in. We see 2 Soviet soldiers saying, "Look, a survivor, you owe me a beer." The other soldier says, "I owe you nothing. They said there would be no survivors from the airstrike," as we see a bloody broken man with no jaw and missing teeth crawling away from them in the snow. The other soldier says, "Well, explain him. If it were up to me, we'd exterminate all these opposition dogs, terrorists, killers." As the other soldier puts his gun to this injured man's head and says, "You know what you do with an injured dog? You shoot it," as he does exactly that. Now, this is just a more elaborate scene of a panel we got in Ultimate Universe 1 year in, which we just went over, where we see an injured Wolverine crawling in the snow away from the Soviets. Meaning this man they just shot in the head is Logan, or Wolverine, who was in Moscow trying to take their people down, but got captured at this moment and killed. Or at least so they thought at the time. They weren't aware of his insane healing factor. So he heals from it, at which point they use him as a specimen and turn him into their Winter Soldier. Anyway, we see Wolverine is remembering this as he's free falling from the plane on the next page. We then see more soldiers at an old converted church looking up in the sky saying, "You see that? A Republic missile?" The other guy says, "No, debris, maybe a satellite falling from orbit, but it's coming right at us. Take cover." But as we know, this is no satellite or debris. This is Logan, and when he gets up, he starts cutting the men into pieces in classic Wolverine fashion. On the next page, we see that inside the church is Raven and Kurt, aka Mystique and Nightcrawler. But Mystique is decked out in military gear holding an assault rifle, and Nightcrawler is in full-on priest garb. Mystique says, "Soldiers, arm yourselves," as Wolverine's claws come cutting through the doors. Nightcrawler yells, "Brothers and sisters, leave now." As Wolverine kicks down the door, we are brought back to the past yet again. Now in this flashback, we get more detail to Wolverine's origin from Ultimate Universe 1 year in, where we see Dr. Alanya, Colossus, Magic, and Omega Red discussing what a fine specimen Logan is, as he's trapped in one of their containment tubes. They all basically talk about how outstanding it is that the specimen, as they refer to him, was able to survive airstrike opposition and a point-blank bullet to the temple. He regenerated his whole body in record time and had strength enough to kill the soldier who shot him. Omega Red says impressive. They say subject originates from the North American Union, like some of the other opposition forces, though it hasn't spoken since we brought it to Moscow. Colossus asks, "So what can we do with this?" The doctor replies, "We have attempted skeletal enhancement before, as you know," alluding that she wants to try to lace his skeleton in adamantium, or at least we think it's adamantium. They never actually say the word adamantium, but based on every other iteration of Wolverine, it's safe to assume that's what they're gonna do. Anyway, Colossus replies, "We cannot permit another such failure, Doctor," but she tells him, "I don't think you need to worry. Not with this specimen," as Wolverine continues to hit the glass tube he's being contained in. They then start to walk away from Wolverine as Magic says, "It seems wild." The doctor tells her, "For now, yes, but what this specimen has that the other specimen lacked is simple. Instinct. He is a survivor. An example, we tried to administer a sedative 4 times. 4 times we lost the technician." Colossus says that it cannot be controlled. The specimen is useless. The doctor tells him, "All due respect, dear leader, but I think you forgot it is not the only specimen we have here." Magic says, "You mean the telepath?" She replies, "For starters, yes. Once we have it under control, I do not think the opposition will be a problem much longer." And that is quite useful, telling us that they're going to use a powerful telepath they captured to keep Wolverine under control. We are then taken back to the present where Wolverine is gearing up for full attack mode, staring down Nightcrawler and Mystique, even cracking his neck like Brock Lesnar, basically saying, "Let's get started, shall we?" So Mystique and Nightcrawler's men start firing at Wolverine as he charges, and we see Nightcrawler starting to pray, saying, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake." As Nightcrawler continues saying his prayer, Wolverine is slicing and dicing all of their men like knives through butter. We straight up see him put his claws right through someone's face. It is brutal. Now, as Nightcrawler is hiding and praying in a corner, Wolverine makes his way to Mystique, but she's able to get away, and when she reappears behind him, she's now Colossus. She's wielding a massive gun and telling Wolverine opposition rats are swarming all over this place. But Wolverine sniffs it out and is like, "You're not the real Colossus," as it's Mystique who, again, transformed into Colossus, hopefully to trick him. But it doesn't work, at which point she realizes that and says, "Oh." And when Wolverine starts attacking Mystique disguised as Colossus, she's able to hold him off briefly, shooting him saying, "Die." But it's ineffective and he slices through her gun and then her neck as she bleeds out and dies. At this point, Wolverine stands over all the bodies he just killed in the church, proud of what he just did, as Nightcrawler peeks his head out in terror. We are then brought back to the past as the Doctor, Colossus, Magic, and Omega Red look at surgeons perform the skeletal surgery on Wolverine. The Doctor says he is under control. Magic asks, "Yet it is chained?" The Doctor replies, "Precaution. Its mind is empty. scars from molding. Colossus asks, its allegiance will only be to the Eurasian Republic? The Doctor replies, yes, Colossus, its memories have been wiped completely. It will not even know its own name. But that instinct, its survival instinct, will remain. You will not find another specimen like it. Close maybe, but this specimen is truly unique. Its past self is dead. Logan it was once called, but no more. We have taken to calling it by its nickname. Seems fitting. Lived, died, and born again as we chose. It will be cold-blooded, relentless, merciless. We call it our Winter Soldier. Now, with that said, I gotta say I really dig the amalgamation of them basically just taking the Weapon X program and the Winter Soldier program and giving us this. Because they're taking aspects of the Weapon X program where they lace Wolverine's skeleton with metal, but they're doing a lot of things similar to the Winter Soldier program where they're wiping his mind and mind controlling him. To be fair, the Weapon X did that too, but this is clearly an amalgamation of the two, and I'm digging it. Anyway, back in the present, Nightcrawler stands up to face off against Logan and tells Logan, if you are who I think you are, no. Who I know you are, I don't know what they've done to you, but this isn't you. However, Logan doesn't care, or should I say the Winter Soldier doesn't care, and he starts attacking Nightcrawler. While fighting him, Nightcrawler says, it's me, Kurt, I beg you, please, I do not wish to fight. But the Winter Soldier ignores him and continues to come after him, so Nightcrawler's hand is forced, and with a tear coming down his eye, he says, I'm sorry, as he starts to attack his old friend. He starts teleporting around, kicking Logan, and then picking up an assault rifle with his tail, as he says, forgive me, but I do what I must. He then starts teleporting like at the beginning of X2, but with an assault rifle, shooting Logan left and right. But this is Wolverine. He's got an amazing healing factor, so it doesn't really do all that much harm, but he also has enhanced smell and is able to sniff out Nightcrawler's scent to anticipate where he's going to teleport next, at which point he impales Nightcrawler right through the chest. But before Nightcrawler dies, he tells his old friend, if you are in there, my friend, I pray you have the strength. I'm sorry we weren't quick enough. We came back. We came back for you. We would always come back for, and before he could finish that sentence, he dies. So this is really cool. Nightcrawler obviously was friends with Logan before he was turned into the Winter Soldier, and they tried to come back for him that day. Logan got captured, but they couldn't find him. They were too late, and since they were too late, Logan is now the Winter Soldier and didn't care 1 ounce what Nightcrawler had to say about him or his past life at all. He then just walks out of the church into the cold night with his mission accomplished. We are then taken into the past one last time as we see Logan before this mission restrained with his eyes pried open like in Clockwork Orange as the Soviet leaders tell him this is your enemy, while they show him images of Nightcrawler and Mystique. The Soviet leader or general says they are dirty, they are cowards, they are wrong, but we have one thing in common. We both know how to fight. The difference is we know how to win. Look at these two. Escaped 2 years ago from the East Berlin camp. They could have been part of our solution, like you, part of history, given themselves, their bodies, their abilities for the Republic. Instead, they are running away. But not you. You are a fighter. You, my friend, you aren't part of history. No, you are history. As they send Wolverine out on his mission to take down his old friends unknown to him. And as the issue ends, we see Wolverine board the Soviet plane that dropped him off as he goes home alone in silence as captions recite the prayer that Nightcrawler was reciting earlier. Those last few pages told us that Wolverine was part of some sort of rebellion against the Soviets with Nightcrawler and Mystique. However, they were able to get away, but Wolverine got injured and captured and turned into the Winter Soldier. We also know that Kurt tried to come back for him, but they weren't able to find him, but at this point, it didn't matter. Logan was now the Winter Soldier and effectively brainwashed, so he killed his friends. I'm very excited to see how this all plays out as we get more revelations from his past. And whether or not they keep him the Winter Soldier. Will he eventually be able to fight the brainwashing, or will this universe keep him the Winter Soldier? Because it is a different universe, the Ultimate Universe, so they don't necessarily have to make Logan a good guy. Either way, this was a great first issue for this series, and it's going to be fun to see where they take Wolverine or the Winter Soldier from here. But we want to know what you all think, so let us know in the comments. Other than that, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.